The battlefield trembles as attacks slice through the air and a colossal monster charges forward, opening its massive jaws to unleash a torrent of blood that explodes against Lin Ji-chen, hurling him away. Terrified, he wonders how the world's greatest mage cultivator could fall before such a savage mutant beast. The creature crashes to the ground with a thunderous impact, and when Lin raises his gaze, he sees Guo Jieji and Zhu Zihui appear before him. Relieved, he thanks the heavens, believing they have come to save him. But Jieji coldly says she never expected him to chase after the fish pendant, just because she asked, calling him a good man, always willing to please her, and declaring she will accept that ring as his final gift, a token of loyalty. Confused, Lin asks what she means. The couple kisses before his eyes, his shock widening, and Jieji reveals that she and Zihui are together, that he is doomed, and they only came to bid farewell. Feeling betrayed, Lin thinks of how he treated them like family, only to be deceived. A surge of power strikes him and his vision goes dark. When he awakens, an alarm is blaring. Lin staggers to his feet, recognizing his university dorm room. He questions how he is still alive, after being crushed by the Torch Dragon, ruler of the Ascension Realm, and wonders where his storage ring and Danfu are. Glancing at the date, he realizes, August 7th, 2040. He has returned exactly 1 day before the start of the game, 10 years earlier. Stunned, he recalls the rumor that the Supreme Fish Pendant, artifact of the strongest mutant beast, could revive its bearer. He never imagined it was true. Thankfully, he hadn't kept it in the ring, or it would have been stolen by those two traitors. He remembers loving Guo Jie for 10 years, only for her to end up with Xu Zihui, his trusted brother. They stole his treasures, his elixirs, and cast him to his death. Now, with the heavens granting him a second chance, Lin swears the two will feel the agony of betrayal. His phone interrupts his thoughts. The saved contact, crazy bitch, flashes on the screen. He answers. A female voice says it's been a long time, and she has something important to tell him. Lin remembers that exactly 10 years ago, on this very day, she had called to say she saw Guo Jie kissing another man. Back then, he didn't believe her and cut ties. Now, overwhelmed, he apologizes. Surprised by his tone, she asks why. He says it's just emotion. Impatient, she insists she doesn't have time for games and blurts that she just saw Guo Jie kissing another man and getting into his sports car. Lin calmly replies that he understands. Startled by his composure, she asks if he is alright, fearing he is hiding something. Lin changes the subject and asks if she knows the game Kate Wastelands. She answers yes, saying the ads are everywhere, and that it was developed by the universal AI MANHUA. Lin then states he intends to become a professional player. In his thoughts, he knows Kite Wastelands is no mere virtual reality game, but something that will reshape the world. In 5 years, reality and the game will merge, and those who start early will hold absolute advantage. On the other end, she congratulates him, saying if he excels, his future will be limitless. He confirms his resolve, declaring he will leave the dorm in 2 days to dedicate himself entirely to the game. She congratulates him but prepares to hang up. Lin stops her, asking her to wait. He explains the game requires expensive equipment, that his withdrawal limit was maxed out the day before, and asks if she can help him. Irritated, she cuts him off, saying she can't because she's broke, and even accuses him of wasting too much on Guo Jie's extravagant birthday gift yesterday, saying he's reaping what he sowed, then abruptly hangs up. Lin sighs in frustration, wondering why he didn't revive a day earlier, when a notification pings on his phone. A message demanding the Academy subscription fee for the next years, urging immediate payment. The same crazy girl adds that if she can't train because of him, she'll use him as a punching bag. Lin replies not to worry because he'll return the money. Later, lying on his bed, he stares at the clock and notices there is only 1 second left. Ready for the moment, he looks at the ring on his finger, which emits a crimson glow into his eyes, and he is instantly summoned elsewhere, officially entering the game. He declares that after 10 years, he has returned to the place where dreams begin. Before him appears Lady Nuwa, so radiant that those nearby can hardly see her clearly. Lin thinks this is the first stage upon entering the game, seemingly simple yet filled with hidden mechanisms requiring utmost caution. While some players whistle and try to draw her attention, Lin slaps his own forehead, considering them all fools for having improper thoughts about the goddess. Then, a magic circle begins pulling the players in, and Nuwa remarks on how noisy they are. Lin knows that if the punishment is light, those who disrespect her will be confined, but if severe, their attributes will be permanently reduced, and only those who show absolute sincerity will earn her favor. Nuwa looks at him and says he seems decent, asking if he wishes to walk the path of cultivation and become an immortal. Through the dissipating smoke, Lin replies yes, formally introducing himself and asking for her blessings. She accepts, granting him a favorable destiny and releasing a powerful energy. He thinks that an innate talent is about to be revealed. He recalls that in his previous life he received the business prodigy talent, something useless in the long run since, although it gave shop discounts, it ended up worthless. He decides that even if he gets the same again, he doesn't mind. Innate talents don't define everything. With his accumulated experience in Kite Wastelands, he knows even a bad start can be overcome. The energy envelops him, his eyes shine, and the system announces that he has obtained an innate talent. Shocked, he realizes that this time, his fate has changed. The new talent is incredibly powerful yet filled with risks, and he understands that the greater the danger, the greater the rewards. Nuwa then declares that she has already granted him a talent, but now he must choose his avatar. Lin studies the basic models and notices that, although similar, each carries different attributes. He recognizes one with the highest charisma value of all, since attractive characters received missions more easily, gained the attention of NPCs, and even had opportunities for dual cultivation, while he ended up disadvantaged. Now he wants to correct that humiliation and make the most of charisma. Nuwa continues, opening a scroll that displays the possible birthplaces. Lin reflects that the 4 lands are tied to the main professions of Kite Wastelands: Yongning for magical cultivation, Yuehua for medical cultivation, Muxian for weapon cultivation, and Hua Feng for body cultivation. He analyzes. Cultivation defines the limit of weapons and techniques. Spirit influences magic and medicine. Comprehension facilitates learning. Charisma shapes NPC interactions, and luck speaks for itself. This time, all of his innate attributes are maxed out from the start, and if he chooses the magical path, he will soon become the greatest mage cultivator. But he also recalls that despite its strength in team battles, magical cultivation is weak in one-on-one combat, and in his past life, he died easily because of that choice, one he made only because of Guo Jie. Now, determined to live for himself, he chooses Muxian, the domain of weapons. The scroll vanishes, and Lin reflects that in this life, if he wishes to be number 1, he must withstand attacks from all sides. But the sword path, with its highest single-target damage, fears no such challenge. He resolves to become the strongest sword cultivator, the one who rides the wind and dominates the world of martial arts. A brilliant light envelops him, transporting him to the beginner's village on the Muxian continent, where a golden radiance heralds his arrival. Players gather, some begging to be carried, others asking where to find quests, and even a boy introducing himself as Zangai Lung Xiao shouts to see if any girl wants to form a couple. Captivated by the scenery, many comment on how real the game feels, as if they had truly been transported to another world, and the boy even declares he feels like reciting a poem before such beauty. For Lin, everything is nostalgic, an identical scene to his previous life. Soon, the newcomers notice the presence of an old NPC and push forward, hoping for a hidden quest. Lin only smiles, finding them foolish since a character that obvious would never give something so rare. Instead, he decides to head straight for the sword sect, confident since he knows the path better than anyone. But then a voice calls out to him. Turning, puzzled, he sees Queen Yang, the seamstress of the village. She asks if he wants a quest, offering to arrange something special. The players nearby glance at each other, intrigued, wondering if this handsome young man is actually a disguised NPC. Kui unexpectedly embraces him and confesses that she has been single since her husband's death 5 years ago. She suggests that if the quest seems difficult, she could help him complete it together, and asks if he accepts. Lin instantly understands this is the effect of his maxed-out charisma. Stunned, he thinks that such a high value truly brings absurd advantages. He concludes that if he accepted and raised favorability with the widow, in just a few days he might even have a chance at dual cultivation. The idea tempts him, but he scolds himself, reminding that his goal is to become the greatest swordsman, not be distracted by beauty at the start. He politely refuses, promising that one day he will return, and Kui smiles, saying she will be waiting. As he leaves, players murmur in disbelief, saying he turned down something unique, and that even the widow NPC was interested in him. She herself comments that they can't believe what they saw and tells them to remember to accept the mission next time. Lin remains firm, telling himself he cannot waste time on side tasks, since the village's true opportunity is near. He approaches a cabin where, according to rumors, there is only a deaf blacksmith who never responds to anyone. Some try to dissuade him, but he thanks them and goes inside, knowing exactly what he's after. Outside, others run off in search of easy gear, unaware of what lies within. Inside, the blacksmith hammers on an unfinished weapon, grumbling that the temperature is too low and the fire too weak. With his experience, Lin realizes he has found the village's true secret. He helps pump the bellows, strengthening the flames. The old man, pleased, thanks him, explaining that his apprentice wasn't around to tend the forge, so the fire was lacking. Grateful for the help, he offers Lin the choice of any weapon in the arsenal, but only as a one-day loan. To most beginners, this would seem petty and worthless, but Lin, a veteran of another life, knows the real reward comes afterwards. He chooses a simple iron sword, normal grade, strength 3. The blacksmith approves the choice and adds a proposal. If Lin can bring 10 venomous fangs from green vipers in the pit, he will earn an even greater opportunity. Lin accepts without hesitation, convinced that his journey as a sword cultivator has truly begun. He leaves carrying the sword, immediately drawing astonished stares, with players wondering how he got a weapon so soon. Playfully, he replies it was nothing special. He just convinced a heartbroken muscular man to hand it over after singing a love song. The curious, believing him, rush to the blacksmith to imitate him, offering potions to forget heartbreaks and reciting melodramatic verses about farewells and late happiness. The scene turns ridiculous until the blacksmith, furious, raises his hammer and chases them out with shouts. Everyone scatters, cursing the boy who fooled them. Meanwhile, Lin is already in the forest where tree stumps swarm with the venomous snakes. One prepares to strike, but he moves first, declaring he needs their lives. With precise blows, he slashes the reptiles and soon feels his cultivation rise to level 3. To his surprise, he already obtains rare items: a green viper bow, a viper sword, and even a storage pouch made of snakeskin, all normal grade. He marvels, remembering that the drop rate in 8 wastelands is extremely low, and suspects the reason is his maxed out innate luck. Still, he decides not to worry, only to keep killing and see how far he can go. A sign warns, "Snake Forest. Enter with caution." Lin presses on, thinking of how much he has already gained. Beyond the 10 venomous fangs required, he has over 100 poisoned arrows and a solid pile of copper coins. With his pouch full, he returns satisfied. At the forge counter, he drops the sack of fangs and announces the delivery. The blacksmith examines the contents, praises their quality, and as promised, rewards him with a letter. Lin instantly recognizes its worth, the official invitation to join the sword sect. He asks if anyone else has received such a prize, but the blacksmith confirms he is the only one so far. Lin's heart races. While other novices waste time with pointless quests, he has already secured the path to become a disciple of the most prestigious sect. At the market, he raises the green viper bow and announces its sale, declaring it the only one in the entire server and that the highest bidder takes it. Players crowd around, driving the offers higher and higher until a girl arrives and shocks everyone by offering 50,000. Men whisper about her identity and her group, intrigued by the number of striking women together. She emphasizes that payment will be cash, immediate transfer, and Lin finds the price fair. Before he can close, a new voice interrupts, raising the bid to 60,000. The newcomer introduces himself as Wang Jinghao, president of the Wanxi Guild, showing generosity as he tries to win Lin over. The players murmur in astonishment, for none expected to see such a prominent figure at the very start of the server. Lin introduces himself politely, but in his thoughts recalls his previous life. By refusing Wanxi back then, he ended up suffering Wang's revenge and lost dearly. Determined not to repeat the same mistakes, he stays cautious. Wang presses on, saying that if Lin is selling to save money for marriage, he himself will cover all wedding expenses as a sign of friendship. But Lin firmly refuses, declaring that a knight does not accept charity. He only wants to sell the item fairly and hopes Wang understands, though inwardly he regrets having used such an impulsive excuse, now trapping himself in a delicate position. Jinghao claims he understands completely, recognizing that someone who could obtain a weapon so early must have determination and skill, something he admires. He adds that his guild does not have a bow like that. The girl then raises the offer to 70,000, but Wang quickly counters with 100,000. The woman pushes it higher to 200,000, and Jinghao replies with 250. The bidding escalates as the elegant lady raises to 300,000. Lin observes, intrigued, trying to guess her guild and noticing she shows no respect for Wang. Perhaps she could even be used against him. Soon she doubles her bid, offering 500,000. Jinghao warns her, asking if she truly intends to waste so much on beginner equipment, while the crowd comments that only someone with great background and influence would dare confront the young master of Wanxi. The lady retorts that she doesn't see how making an offer is opposing anyone, and accuses Wang of arrogance for thinking no one can buy what he wants, calling him scum for competing against the MME. Irritated, Jinghao steps back, saying he won't spend 500,000 on something so basic, and prepares to leave. At that moment, Lin stops him, declaring he has always heard of Wanxi and that if Wang is willing to pay 500,000, he will sell the bow to him. The guild president smiles, thinking Lin clever, and promises that if he ever needs it, Wanxi will support him. He asks for Lin's account number and pledges to transfer immediately. Lin thinks he is building a good impression now to bleed more from him later. Jinghao adds that he won't hold grudges against the refined lady, but hopes she learns her lesson, even inviting her to join Wanxi. To Lin, spending 500,000 just to buy influence is insane. But the young master doesn't even realize he has been fooled and remains grateful. Soon he will discover the bow isn't worth that much, since the venomous arrows are limited and only useful for annoying low-level quests. The woman, furious, accuses Lin of going back on his word, saying he promised to sell to the highest bidder, but now acts like a dog bowing to power, calling him pathetic and a servant of Wanshi. Lin thinks that while he angered them, he also profited, and the mistress orders her group to leave. He, meanwhile, begins planning how he might repay them in the future. Later, in the boar forest, the women of her guild teleport into train, and the mistress orders each to kill 2 boars. Lin follows them, confirming they are all there. The leader, surprised, asks why he came. He requests a private conversation, promising it will be brief. When alone, she questions his intention, thinking perhaps he was deceived by Wanshi's reputation and deserves another chance. Lin, serious, declares he has top-secret information that could place her guild ahead of all the others. He proposes selling the data for 500,000. The mistress finds it strange and asks why he didn't offer it to Wang, since he was begging for his support moments earlier. Lin smiles and replies that Wang is not worthy, that he was only playing around to buy time, since without money or power he wouldn't survive. In his mind, he knows the enemy of his enemy could be his ally, and since she clearly hates Wang, there's a chance of cooperation. The leader hesitates, finding him too quick to shift positions, but Lin presses, asking if she will buy or not, guaranteeing it isn't a scam and providing his account number. She reflects that if it is true, missing the chance would be a mistake, and decides to buy, transferring the money. Lin smiles with satisfaction, thinking it couldn't be better. In so little time, he has already amassed 1 million inside the game. Even knowing that money will become useless once the virtual and real worlds merge, for now, it is the foundation to completely change his life. Lin looks at the mistress and tells her to stop the boar hunt and go accept the blacksmith's quest. She retorts that he couldn't possibly accept a weaponsmith's quest and suspects he was sent by Wang just to trick them, threatening to eliminate him right there if necessary. Lin replies that the problem lies only in the method. All it takes is helping the blacksmith pump the bellows for a few minutes during the forging, and the quest will appear. He suggests that if she doesn't believe him, she can have one of her subordinates test it discreetly, because if the information spreads, it will lose all value. He explains further that the most important thing is not the quest itself but the rewards that follow. The mistress is startled when he reveals that the prize is an invitation to the sword sect. Lin confirms and says that with it, they will be able to discover the sect's location and even join it. He declares he has said everything he needed to, and now it is up to her to decide. She stops him, asking why he would sell such a precious secret, and Lin, in a provocative tone, replies that maybe it's because she's quite attractive. The mistress blushes, but their exchange is interrupted when her companions cry for help. A massive boar charges after them. The leader realizes they stumbled upon a forest boss and orders a retreat, knowing they don't have enough men to defeat it. Lin watches and remarks that they are lucky to have encountered the greatest boss of the novice village. Wanling asks if he really intends to face the boar alone. Lin confirms and asks to borrow her sword since he already sold the bow. Reluctantly, the mistress tosses the weapon, warning that if he seeks death, it's on him. Lin thanks her and grips the blade. The girls whisper that he only wants to impress their leader and flirt with her. Ling grows irritated at the teasing, but quickly draws more giggles when they notice she is blushing. On the battlefield, Lin charges the boar, trading violent blows. He regrets not having used the bow before selling it, as it would have made the fight easier. The beast hurls him back, and Lin realizes his strikes aren't lowering its HP as they should. He understands that a frontal fight is pointless and decides to use his head. He dashes away, baiting the monster. The girls assume he gave up, laughing at his apparent flight, but Wanling comments that as a beginner it makes no difference. Dying a few times is part of learning. Cornered against a boulder, Lin mutters that it's time to finish this, then executes a deadly move. The boar charges and slams its face into the rock, shattering one tusk in a devastating impact. The girls widen their eyes in shock. The beast bellows in pain and Lin declares it's his chance. Sword in hand, he strikes again and again. The boar struggles but crashes once more into the stone, breaking the other tusk. Seizing the opening, Lin leaps onto its back and drives the final blow, bringing it down. As he lands, magical flames envelop his body and the system announces his cultivation has leapt to level 70. Chi refinement. His alter fate talent activates, doubling all his attributes against the very laws of heaven. Lin rejoices, realizing he has officially become a cultivator far earlier than expected, all thanks to the encounter with the Boar King. New notifications appear. Alter fate continues to trigger, granting him a random power. He receives the Seed of Vitality, which increases health by 10% and can be upgraded 3 times. Lin reflects that this bonus is priceless, especially for someone as fragile as him in the early stages. With his talent already doubling stats, and now with extra vitality, he sees that while most beginners have around 1000 HP, he already possesses 2000, putting him far ahead of everyone else. The system announces that Lin is the first player to slay the novice village boss in 8 Wastelands, broadcasting his feat worldwide. A prompt asks if he wants to hide his name, but he answers no. There's no reason to conceal it. More notices confirm. For being first, he gains 200 reputation points and 1 extra innate luck point, while other players are encouraged to work harder. People react in disbelief, saying the game has barely started and already someone defeated a boss. They speculate it must have been some group using wave tactics to chip away its health, with Lin only landing the final strike. Wanling watches from afar, now knowing his name. As the smoke clears, treasures appear before him. An illuminator staff, the spiritual technique Shadow Step, and, most importantly, the spiritual sword Crimson Cloud. He marvels, convinced his maxed-out innate luck truly makes a difference. In the sky, thunder cracks as another warning appears. In 30 minutes, a heavenly tribulation will descend upon him, and he must be prepared. Lin gathers the loot, pondering if alter fate is involved again. He understands that each breakthrough will trigger tribulation, and if he fails, his soul will be destroyed. Resolute, he runs toward the sword sect, praying that some expert will help him survive. Wanling approaches, saying they can be friends and promising to buy future equipment from him at fair prices. Ling asks to add him and sends her ID. Lin accepts but says he must leave, and soon the notification confirms the new friendship. Wanling watches him go, intrigued, finding it odd how rushed he seemed, as if fleeing from something scarier than the Boar King itself. Lin sprints toward the entrance of the sword sect, hoping to find a master who can shield him. Onlookers comment on his urgency, joking he looks like someone running to reincarnate. Lightning continues tearing across the sky, shocking everyone, since the weather had been clear moments before. A female figure approaches. It is the sect leader, immediately greeted with respect by her disciples. She gazes at the heavens and questions if the sudden change is a heavenly tribulation. Another disciple wonders who could be advancing since no rumors of promotion had spread. The answer soon arrives. The newcomer, Lin Ji-chen. He appears before them, invitation letter in hand, begging the great masters for help. Bolts intensify, threatening to incinerate him, and he raises the letter to the leader, pleading for salvation. Lin thinks that at his current level, he could never withstand celestial power. All that remains is to pray for intervention. The sect leader conjures a brilliant light that fuses with the lightning, dispersing the tribulation in a blinding flash. Lin exhales in relief, grateful he didn't die. Falling there would have meant starting over and losing priceless opportunities. An elder, shocked, remarks he has never seen anyone summon tribulation at the chi refinement stage, concluding this boy is anything but ordinary. Another points out that if he becomes an elder in the future, the master who accepts him will gain unmatched respect. A voice proclaims he is a true genius. A female cultivator steps forward, offering to take him as her disciple and promising all resources for his cultivation. Another elder argues that, since she is a woman, it would be improper to accept a male disciple and claims Lin for himself. The woman counters, demanding why he contests her, as he already has countless students. Lin watches in silence, satisfied. Not only has he survived, but he has also drawn the interest of the strongest elders. He reminds himself to remain calm, without showing eagerness so as not to damage his image. Then the sect leader speaks with authority, declaring that she herself will take him as her disciple. The elders murmur in shock, believing she never accepted students. Leng Freiyan, leader of the Tianyun sect, asks if Lin is willing to follow her as a direct disciple and enter the inner hall to cultivate. The system confirms the ultimate opportunity. The sect leader herself wishes to take him under her wing. Lin can hardly believe it, but quickly decides he must accept. He kneels before her, declaring he is willing, and greets her as his master. Leng accepts formally and orders him to follow. Lin rejoices inwardly, thinking he just secured an immensely powerful backer, and can't help but notice her long, pale, well-shaped legs. Later, a voice echoes through the sect explaining that the Sword Palace is Tianyun's core, free from outside disturbance, and there he will cultivate in the future. Soon, a disciple will be sent to guide him to his residence. The leader tells him to meet her at dawn in the main hall, and Lin promises to remember. Yet inwardly, he judges her cold and distant, deciding it best to cultivate quietly and hide in the shadows. An hour passes with no guiding disciple, so Lin explores on his own. He walks through the inner hall, observing the many residences, wondering if there might be hidden quests. Spotting a particularly unique dwelling, he decides to peek. Opening the door, he is startled by a female voice demanding to know who dares enter. Lin freezes, realizing it is his master's residence, and hurriedly apologizes. Lang appears furious, unleashing her power and knocking him to the ground, demanding who allowed him into her quarters. Trembling, Lin explains that the guiding disciple never came, and he was only trying to familiarize himself with the area, entering by mistake. He curses his bad luck inwardly and begs that this error not tarnish his relationship with her. To his surprise, Lang spares him, saying mistakes born of ignorance are not crimes, but warns him never to enter again without permission. She then tosses him a pill the system notifies Violet Jade Pill, boosts all combat attributes by 30 for 5 minutes, and restores 3,000 stamina outside combat. Lin is stunned, reflecting that his master is truly generous, discarding such a mystic grade pill so casually. He thanks her but decides to save it for a critical moment. The door closes, and right after the guiding disciple appears, she introduces herself, Nan Gongyu, already in the late stages of the crystallization realm. He greets her as senior sister, and the system notifies that current favorability is 10. Lin is impressed since reaching 10 points at the first meeting proves how much the game favors good looks. He also notices how Gongyu is more beautiful than flowers and carries a refined aura. The senior smiles and comments that he seems playful. Lin replies that to improve cultivation, it's not enough to just study hard. Sometimes a kiss is better than days of training. Nan laughs and the favorability rises. Lin thinks with satisfaction that compared to the strict master, this senior seems much more approachable. He also reflects on how different levels of favorability can open hidden quests, and that with female NPCs, once congenital love is reached, physical interactions may occur, and at perfect unison stage, even Dao marriage and dual cultivation. Still, he recalls that many players in his previous life failed trying to pursue NPCs. Suddenly, Lin coughs blood and Gong Yue asks in alarm when he was injured. He realizes his internal wound will take at least an hour and a half to heal naturally, but he plans to use the situation. He says it's nothing serious, just that before she arrived, he tried to find his own residence and by mistake entered the master's house, getting hit by her. Gong Yue feels embarrassed, admitting it was her fault since she should have guided him but was late reading a romance. As compensation, she gives him a qi replenishing pill, urging him to take it immediately. Lin thanks her and inwardly smiles, thinking it's not bad at all, another free gain in his new journey. Gong Yue insists it was her fault, saying if she hadn't been late reading, he wouldn't have been hurt by the master. Chen replies that it's not her fault, but his own, for wandering carelessly. The guide smiles, touched, and comments that even injured he still defends her, calling him truly good. The system notifies another increase in favorability. Nan then hands him a jade pendant as further compensation, a spiritual grade item, Spirit Gathering. Jade pendant with defense 10, heart protection 5, 1% mana recovery per second out of combat, and the skill Spirit Shield, able to block one attack from enemies below her stage. Gong Yu tells him to keep it safe. Lin thinks it's an incredible piece, even among spiritual gear, and that the shield is extremely useful. The guide only smiles and says it's nothing, that there are many other treasures in the sect, then calls him to follow her to his residence, where he'll find all basic beginner equipment. Lin thanks her and reflects how important it is to know how to act. Otherwise, how could he get so many treasures right at the start? That's why he must treat 8 Wastelands NPCs as real humans, something only he, a returnee, understands. The guide then shows him the Earth-grade Spirit Gathering formation, explaining that here, spiritual energy absorption is much faster. She comments there's only one Mystic grade formation kept by her father and admits she envies that. Lin is impressed. Normally, new players just find any place to meditate with slow progress. He never expected his residence to have an Earth-grade formation, probably arranged by the master. Nan pats his shoulder, says her task is done, bids farewell and calls him little brother. The system notifies Qi Refinement, Initial Stage, Max Innate Comprehension, Earth-grade Spirit Gathering buff, Meditation Speed 52 points per hour. Lin begins cultivating and is shocked. Meditation is over 10 times faster than normal at this stage. He calculates that going AFK for 3 hours will max out the initial level. The master will only see him at dawn, so with nothing else to do, he logs out. Outside the game, a phone notification catches his attention. Transfer from the Industrial and Commercial Bank to his account, ending in 7,788, amount of 1,661,782 riels and 35 cents. Lin can hardly believe it. In just a few hours, he has already earned over 1.6 million and can finally change the tragic fate of his previous life. The next day, a motorcycle stops in front of the building and the crazy bitch gets off, removing her helmet. She knocks on the door, he opens, and she asks why he called her when she was about to start her morning run. Chen smiles and says he just wanted to show her his newly rented apartment. She enters, looks around, and comments that it's not bad. Lin confirms and says the rent costs 5 to 6,000 per month. Ren stares at him and comments that he really knows how to live, asking if that's what he used the academy fee she gave him for. Lin shamelessly replies yes, since he couldn't pay anyway. It was better to spend it all and forget. The crazy bitch gets angry, jumps on him, and strangles him, threatening to crush him like a punching bag for using the academy money. Lin struggles to break free and asks her to wait. At that moment, someone knocks at the door saying the gaming socket he bought has arrived. He shouts for them to hold on, looks at Ren and says he earned money in the game and bought the cockpit as a gift for her, and if she doesn't want it, she can return it immediately. Ren retorts that she doesn't need a refund, that she already bought one herself, and that there's no way to return it. Lin then comments that a gaming cockpit already covers the academy fee, but it probably wouldn't fit in the school dorm. If placed at her house, her father might complain, so he reserved a room in his apartment just for her. Lon brightens instantly, agreeing, saying it's the latest cockpit, already planning to take pictures to post and share with friends. Lin is surprised at how quickly her anger vanishes and concludes that money really solves 99% of problems, deciding he needs to return to the game and accumulate even more. Inside 8 Wastelands, Lin trains with his master at the center of a mana circle. Lang watches his movements and says it's not bad. His qualities are among the best she has ever seen, and that in just a few hours he has exceeded expectations. He thanks her for the praise. She then pulls out a high-quality chi condensing pill and gives it to him, saying that upon consuming it, he will advance to the mid-stage of refinement. Lin thanks her again, impressed, thinking that such an elixir could only be obtained in higher-level sects. Lang warns that high talent alone isn't enough. A truly strong cultivator also needs experience from countless battles. Lin replies that he understands, explaining that flowers raised in greenhouses can't survive the path of cultivation, but trees that withstand storms can achieve eternal life. In his mind, he remembers how, in his past life, he realized this game had immense freedom, and that even cultivation realms could be strengthened with money and equipment. The master is surprised, saying it's rare for someone so young to have such a solid perspective, and the system notifies that her favorability has increased. Lin feels excited at gaining points with his master, but quickly scolds himself. He must not be deluded by emotions, because in this life he only desires to become the #1 sword cultivator, not to give away his heart. Lang then instructs him to go to the sect's outer hall, choose a mission of appropriate difficulty for chi refinement, and promises that once he completes it, he will receive a spiritual pill. Before that, she teaches him the Tianyan Heart Sutra, a technique every sect disciple learns that yields more benefits the more it is cultivated. Lin thanks her, thinking that even though it is basic, external disciples need to complete missions to earn it, while he receives it immediately as a direct disciple. As he observes the sect, Lin notices more and more players gathering, which makes sense since the invitation quest can be discovered by anyone clever enough. Still, he feels secure for having seized the chance first. Then he hears someone call him handsome expert. It is Ling, approaching with her partner. He is surprised, imagining she may have used the information he sold to join the sword sect, which isn't bad, since the more allies he has, the more options he will have in the future. Lin comments it's a coincidence to meet her and asks if she also joined the sword sect. Wanling replies that she always loved swords and naturally chose that sect. He bids farewell, saying he still needs to complete a mission, promising to talk later. Ling complains that he never lets her finish speaking and just leaves, while her partner comments that he is so handsome and cold, it'll be hard to win him over. Wanling gets irritated, asking when she ever implied she was interested in him. Her friend teases, saying it would be fun to see a story where the woman chases the man, but regrets that it isn't the case. On the other side of the hall, a voice reminds them not to waste time and that they must complete missions quickly, since they still need 3 merit points to trade for the Tianyan Heart Sutra. They complain that they've been working on it since joining the sect and still lack points, finding it too difficult and wondering what kind of person could obtain the sutra so soon. The clerk calls the next in line. Lin steps forward and says he is there to choose a mission, and the attendant recommends selecting something within his abilities. Lin analyzes the options and thinks the simplest mission would be to collect some mortal herbs, but aside from a little experience, it offers no real benefit, just wasted time. The intermediate missions involve hunting monsters at the chi refinement stage, but those also offer nothing beyond basic points, without the chance to gain true combat experience. He then wonders if there might be a special plaque among the hell difficulty missions. Finding it, his eyes light up. The mission takes place in Fengku, a city he already knows well. He selects it without hesitation, convinced that special missions can bring exclusive rewards. The system notifies combat attributes increased by 5%. The description follows. A sword sect disciple, still in the refinement stage, was killed outside the sect and his secret technique stolen. The mission is to avenge Zhang and recover the lost Tianyuan manual. An elder appears to warn that the mission is extremely difficult and advises him to reconsider, explaining that the enemy is likely at the late stage of qi refinement, far above Lin's current level. She also reminds him that the sect forbids taking new missions until the current one is completed. Lin listens respectfully, thanks for her concern, but keeps his resolve firm. He will accept the Hell mission. The people around are astonished, and one of them questions if he really accepted a Hell difficulty mission. A companion laughs, saying it must be a joke since the description clearly states the enemy is at the late stage of qi refinement. They ask how he intends to complete something like that if he would risk his own life. They also comment that beyond the enemy's level, there are almost no clues. Finding the culprit would be like searching for a needle in the ocean, the kind of mission that makes many laugh at those who dare. In the mountains, the protagonist approaches a small village, simple houses surrounded by cliffs. Lin observes and states this is the key point to advance. A woman greets him, calling him an immortal of the Tianyuan sword sect and welcoming him, inviting him to follow. Soon after, an elder announces that the leader of the Taoist temple sect, Muqing Jeren, has just reached the divine transformation stage, further strengthening the Zhuanwu temple. He also mentions that the 100 Flowers Fairy of the Polar Heaven Valley and the Great Elder of the Crimson Sun sect have married, forming a powerful alliance. Ji recognizes the man as the intelligence merchant of the 8 Awakened Lands, someone comparable to real-life reporters. He knows everything, great or small, and lives by selling fresh news for coins. Ji thinks that by listening patiently, he will find useful clues for the mission. The merchant reveals that a Tianyuan disciple named Zhang was killed during a journey. His murderer is Zhou Hao, a rogue cultivator in the late qi refinement stage, a cruel man of the demonic path. Chen realizes he finally has the information he expected. The protagonist then calls the merchant, asking him to wait as he wishes to buy more details. He reflects that most players rush straight to the mission site after the first clue, but he knows that for truly complete information, he must spend. The merchant, named Li Si, smiles and says he can answer anything as long as he is paid. Lin asks where Zhou Hao is. After receiving the coins, Li Si says Zhou usually appears in the red district of Fengku City and can be found there. He then adds that he has another crucial piece of information, but would only reveal it for 5 more spirit stones. Ji agrees to pay. Li Si then warns, although Zhou is only a cultivator at the late qi refinement stage, he has a brother named Shen who is already in the foundation stage, making the situation dangerous. In Fengku at the Autumn Moon Building, women dance and enjoy themselves. One of them calls for Zhou, telling him to come back soon. Zhou descends the stairs satisfied, promising that next time he will make them all surrender to his pleasure. The protagonist watches from hiding, confirming that the target has appeared. At night, Zhou walks through the forest until he senses a presence. He asks who is there. Lin emerges behind him, replying that someone came to take his life. Zhou stares with disdain, calling him a bastard in the early qi refinement stage, and asking if he thinks he can seek revenge just because he belongs to the Tianyuan sword sect. He then charges to attack, shouting that he must be tired of living. Ji dodges the blow. Zhou draws his weapon and spins quickly, trying to hit him, but Chen reacts precisely and strikes him. Zhou retreats in disbelief, questioning how someone at the initial stage could have such strength. The protagonist replies that it's not that he is too strong, it's that Zhou is weak. In his mind, he recalls that the bonus of plus 5% in all attributes after learning the Tianyuan Heart Sutra makes a huge difference. Zhou infuses his weapon with mana and launches another attack. Lin raises the spirit shield, deciding to test the jade pendant that stores spirits, Nan's gift. The attack is blocked, and Ji comments that the shield is truly useful. Zhou grows angry, saying he never imagined he had so many treasures, calling him favored by the sect, and orders him to hand everything over if he wants to live. Chen mocks him, asking who gave him the courage to demand that. Zhou, enraged, unleashes consecutive strikes, but the protagonist dodges them all. Zhou panics, muttering that it's impossible and that he can't drag the fight out or he'll be defeated. Lin fixes his gaze for a moment, charges forward with speed, and lands a decisive hit. Zhou, stunned, wonders how a single blow could cut 90 points from his life. Ji doesn't give him space and keeps striking, forcing him to lose more and more energy. Chen thinks that even though Zhou is at the late qi refinement stage, he is much weaker than expected, especially against someone who should only be at the beginning of the stage. Hao is gravely wounded. The protagonist raises his sword, points it at him, and calls him a weak chicken, demanding that he hand over the Tianyuan sect's secret technique immediately. Zhou, lying on the ground, admits his arrogance for not recognizing Lin's strength and surrenders, promising to deliver what he wants. But before he can, a violent attack tears through the air and explodes into the ground, opening a crater. Lin suspects a sneak attack, Hao screams for his brother, begging for help, saying he's being hunted and that the boy's bad luck was running into him. The new enemy promises to make Ji pay 100-fold for the scars he left on his body. The protagonist recognizes the man, Zhou Shen, at the foundation stage. Even the initial phase of that realm already surpasses everything he has faced so far. Shen scolds his brother, reminding him he had already warned him to stay hidden in the mountains, as times are dangerous. If he hadn't noticed Hao's absence and come back to look, he would already be dead. Hao admits his fault, promises not to leave again, but begs for vengeance. Shen demands Lin hand over the spirit shield in exchange for a quick, painless death. Otherwise, he promises torture until he begs for the end. Hao adds, asking to wait while he recovers with an elixir, then charges to attack. Lin repels him with ease, throwing him aside and leaving him gravely injured. Ji mocks, saying villains always talk too much before dying and that his goal was to kill both brothers and double the rewards. He then faces Shen, declaring that now it's his turn. Shen attacks furiously, accusing him of seeking his own destruction. Chen recognizes the fight will be far more complicated than against Zhou. He is struck and soon Shen appears at his back. Lin blocks by instinct but is pushed away, his feet dragging on the ground until he steadies himself. He admits Shen is faster but consoles himself with his experience, able to predict movements and defend by a hair's breadth. Shen presses again, landing heavy blows. Ji regrets using the spirit shield too early, with its cooldown at 15 minutes. He can't rely on it now. But he remembers another advantage, Shadow Step, with only a 10-second cooldown. He plans to use it to escape and counter. Shen taunts that competing in speed with him is naive, then invokes a clone technique surrounding him, declaring that this time there's no escape. Chen calmly studies them. He has faced similar skills before. The clones look identical, but only the real body has light in the eyes. The others are hollow shadows. With that, he identifies the true body and lands a clean strike. The piercing technique proves effective, halving the enemy's defense. He knows he must strike quickly and relentlessly to win. Shen spits blood and roars in pain, forcing Lin to fall back. The cultivator then charges again, mocking, asking if a mere scratch makes him think he faces a sick cat. Ji blocks but can't avoid every blow, pressured by Shen's insane speed. The protagonist's health drops to a third, and he realizes he won't endure much longer. He knows if he loses, he'll forfeit 10% of his attributes, unacceptable after such a promising start. He is forced to use the elixir his master gave him, reluctant but with no choice. Shen frowns at the move, but Chen feels the violet jade pill's effect instantly, vigor and strength flooding back. Shen glares with disdain, saying he wants to see if he still laughs in the underworld. Lin blocks the next strike, feeling the pill's energy coursing through him, restoring 3,000 health points at once. Shen is startled to see his attack blocked and remarks that the elixir must be extraordinary. He admits he didn't expect so many treasures, recognizing that for now Lin can resist thanks to it, but questions if he can rely on it forever. Lin answers firmly that the elixir has a time limit, and that's exactly why he only needs to kill him before it ends. The elder brother seethes, not understanding how his opponent grew so strong so suddenly, and chooses to retreat, planning to defend until the pill's power wears off. Chen feels he is beginning to grasp the true essence of the sword, his strikes sharper and more precise. The protagonist presses the attack, inflicting continuous damage, while Shen thinks he cannot allow a Tianyun sword sect disciple, possibly a rising star, to live. Otherwise, the consequences will be dire. Gathering vast mana, Shen lunges with his sword, but Lin dodges swiftly, surprising him. Ji doesn't waste the chance, charges in and lands a decisive strike, knocking him to the ground. Wounded and near death, Shen asks how this is possible. Chen smiles, convinced the matter is settled. The system notifies the mission's completion and authorizes his return to the sect to receive rewards. The protagonist looks at the bodies on the ground, satisfied with the gains of the journey. He decides to collect the loot before leaving, but thinks of doing something more. At Fengku's market, Lin reflects that this was his first mission outside the sect and that he should buy a gift for his master. He recalls the saying that what matters is the intention, and that in this traditional world, respecting the master is obligatory. He decides a jade hairpin would be ideal since, as they say, a woman can never have too many accessories. He then goes to deliver the mission. An elder receives him and praises him, impressed with how quickly he completed a hell difficulty task. The witnesses are stunned, murmuring that such a thing should be impossible, as missions of that level require at least a cultivator in the late chi refinement stage. They also notice the goatskin scroll, asking if it is the mission item. The elder confirms that he is truly an elite of the inner halls and will have a bright future, wishing him fortune and handing over the rewards, including 100 lower-grade spirit stones as a bonus. The protagonist thanks her. Those around are even more shocked, commenting that in so many missions they only earn 10 stones and that 100 sect merit points equal 10 tasks. Curious, they ask what cultivation realm he is in to achieve such a feat, if he would take a disciple or if he already has a guild. A young woman praises him, asking to be carried and hinting she would do anything for him. Lin thanks her but says he has other matters and leaves. Crowds follow, inviting him to join their guilds until two young men block the way and remind everyone it is forbidden to solicit inner disciples. All retreat, murmuring that he is indeed a true expert. Later, Ji returns to his master's residence and greets her. Leng stares at him and asks why, having been instructed to choose only a difficult mission, he dared to take one of hell level. She explains that if he had failed, not only would he have lost his life, but the sect would have wasted a genius. Chen bows, admitting his mistake and acknowledging the rebuke is fair. Fei Yan interrupts, asking to let it go, and wants to know who he fought. Lin replies that he believed he would face only someone in Qi refinement, but discovered the enemy had a brother in the foundation stage. His master is surprised and asks if he truly defeated such an opponent. Lin admits he only succeeded thanks to the elixir she gave him. Without it, he would have had no chance. Leng scolds him, reminding him that the difference between realms is immense, and that he must act with much greater caution in the future, avoiding reckless actions. He is recognized as the most talented disciple in the sect, and his master warns him to safeguard a certain talisman, using it only in situations of life and death. In her thoughts, she admits she never expected his aptitude to be so extraordinary, carrying the talent of a genius seen only once every 1,000 years. The system notifies that the soul talisman contains a fragment of Fei Yan's soul sealed within, usable only once and never in player battles. Ji thanks her, convinced that with her support he will have confidence against any challenge, and decides to cling tightly to that protection. His master also gives him another high-quality Qi condensing pill, promising it will help him overcome upcoming obstacles, in recognition of his hell difficulty mission. Chen thanks her deeply, promising not to disappoint. Leng reminds him that now he must hone his sword techniques and may exchange them in the scripture library. The protagonist hesitates and admits that he wanted to buy his master a gift, but didn't have enough money for something luxurious like a jeweled hairpin, so he brought only a simple one. He doesn't know if she will appreciate it. Fei Yan merely instructs him to cultivate diligently and not slack. Lin, in silence, wonders if she thought the gift inadequate or if she is simply cold by nature. Soon, a notification appears. His master's favorability has increased. Ji brightens, concluding she is just reserved but accepted his intention. That is progress. Suddenly, an explosion echoes. Chen is alarmed and tries to understand what happened. People cough as smoke spreads. An elder grumbles in frustration, saying he failed again, complaining that the pill of eternal youth is even harder to refine than the celestial essence pill. Stubborn, he declares he will not give up. He introduces himself as Tian King, one of the 12 great elders of the sword sect, and announces that he needs a medicinal catalyst, asking if anyone will volunteer to assist him. Among the disciples, many murmur that going to the Kanglang Medicine Valley would require spending spirit stones, and no one wants to take such a risk. They consider the task a waste of time and money, especially with the risk of death. The protagonist steps forward and declares he is willing to fetch the yin replenishing herb. Everyone is shocked, calling him a fool for accepting such a thing. Tian King watches and realizes this is the new direct disciple of that cold girl. Lin, on the other hand, recognizes this man as the sect's greatest alchemy master and thinks cultivating a good relationship with him can only bring benefits. Later that night, in the Kanglang Medicine Valley, Ji walks cautiously, recalling the experience he accumulated. He deduces that boss monsters like the spirit falcon usually appear in areas where the herbs grow more lushly. Soon, he spots the beast and concludes he found it. But he also notices he is not alone. A group is already battling the monster. Watching the fight, he notices they seem to be members of a guild, but even together, they are about to be wiped out. He considers negotiating to claim the boss since he needs the falcon for his mission. Suddenly, one of the guild girls notices him from above and tells the leader that this is the famous expert. Lin confirms to himself they are from Su's guild, acquaintances of his, which could make things easier. He approaches and explains he urgently needs the falcon to fulfill a mission, asking if they can let him have the boss. One of the girls is doubtful and asks if he really is who he appears to be. Wan confirms, saying he is the same expert who single-handedly defeated the Boar King of the Novice Village and whose feat was announced to the entire server. She also recalls that the blacksmith mission was information they bought from him. Another member, however, refuses, saying the boss is equally vital to them and that the Moon Shadow Guild cannot yield even to a friend. Ling steps up, apologizes, and explains they need the falcon for their own mission, asking Ji to wait until the next day when the creature will respawn. The protagonist sighs, already expecting that answer, but notices that from the way the battle unfolds, waiting might not be necessary. The falcon suddenly begins regenerating, unleashing a thunderous cry. The girls falter, dizzy, as the beast charges with a ferocious attack. Chen comments aloud that when the falcon's health drops halfway, it releases a devastating pollen that reduces stamina and increases skill cooldowns, wishing them good luck against that. Juan is startled and asks what he said. One girl tells them to ignore him, insisting they focus on holding the boss. They charge together at the beast. The gray-haired girl activates the blazing fire lantern and a massive explosion rocks the field, taking a large chunk of the falcon's health. G watches and thinks that kind of attack will only enrage the beast further. When the falcon's fury rises high enough, not only does its attack speed increase, but also the power of each strike. Flames spread toward the monster. The enraged falcon lunges with its massive beak wide open. Ling shouts for her partner to be careful, but the gray-haired girl is hit hard, losing most of her health and collapsing, though she still triggers the stone rain skill. Lin observes and says that Cultivator is being careless, remarking he can teach the correct method to handle the beast, but he needs the yin replenishing herb it will drop and asks what they will do. The girls agree and beg for his guidance. Ji explains the falcon now has her as the main hate target, and yet she insists on using stone rain, further enraging it. He warns her health is already hanging by a thread, and when the falcon recovers from stone rain's effect, it will finish her with a single blow. He says that is not how the skill is used, that the correct way is to combine it with Earth Immortal's bound hands to cause greater damage. He points out the cooldown for that technique should be over and tells her to use it first. The girl attacks and Chen confirms that's exactly right, praises her and instructs her to keep controlling from afar so her companions can deal damage. The girl thanks him for the instruction. At that moment, a voice declares that the Plasma Demons Guild is clearing the area. The protagonist looks back and sees a team of young men approaching, saying they want the boss and ordering everyone to stop fighting and leave, or else don't blame them for being rough. Juan comments that Bloodfiend is a well-known guild in gaming circles and that they don't have enough people to fight them, asking what they should do. The leader responds they must fight against them, because if they yield this time, they will always yield whenever they meet. Even if they lose, they must show the fighting spirit of the Moonshadow Guild, and at least they cannot lose their pride. Ling agrees, saying she understands. The leader reinforces that they're just a step away from defeating the falcon, but they won't succeed if they split their focus between fighting the guild and the boss, and it's a shame to give up. Then a voice offers help. It's Lin who declares he can handle the falcon alone and proposes that, besides the yin replenishing herb, they can also choose one piece of equipment dropped by the monster. He asks if they accept. The leader is astonished, and Juan suggests leaving some behind to help Lin, but Ji refuses, explaining that all of them must fight the guild battle and leave the boss to him. The girls exchange surprised looks. One of the rival guildmen bursts into laughter, saying it's hilarious, asking if he really plans to face the falcon in the late chi refinement stage alone, and claims he's delusional. He shouts for his brothers to advance and teach a lesson to that third-rate guild. The Moonshadow leader orders her companions to stop attacking. The two groups clash, trading blows, and one enemy sneers that the Medicine Valley is a place for talents and that the women came to the wrong place. But soon he is struck as well, and the girls remain in formation. Another opponent mocks, asking why women would come to the Medicine Valley to get into a fight, saying their place is in the novice village and he'll send them back there immediately. The leader declares this is the fate of those who dare to oppose the blood demons, saying to treat it as a small lesson for an inferior guild. He thinks the game has barely started and he already destroyed a guild and that afterward he will also eliminate the boss, making it perfect. A partner beside him points to the sky and says it looks like an announcement. The leader asks what he said, until the system announces and congratulates the player Lin for being the first to kill a chi refinement stage boss in 8 wastelands, awarding 400 reputation points, 2 innate charisma points, and an achievement medal. Everyone is stunned. The protagonist declares he killed the beast and calls his partner to split the loot. The rival leader watches furiously and demands how he dares steal his boss, accusing him of being tired of living, and thinks someone capable of killing a boss alone at that level will be a huge threat in the future, and must be eliminated immediately to rob his gear and halt his progress. He shouts for them to attack, promising rewards to whoever succeeds. One of the men charges confidently, claiming he will settle it and boasting he is an MMA fighter in real life, trained for 20 years, then swings a punch at Lin. Lin dodges easily and the man is shocked that he managed to avoid it. Ji counterattacks instantly, striking with his sword while thinking that in his past life, he played as a mage cultivator for 9 years and faced countless ambushes, so dealing with such a weak punch is simple. The opponent is stunned, asking how his reaction can be so fast, but Chen doesn't give him a chance. He slashes again and delivers the final blow, killing him. The onlookers gasp and murmur among themselves, wondering how it's possible. how his damage is so high without even using skills. The protagonist declares that just because he doesn't cause trouble for them doesn't mean he is afraid. He doesn't care about guild disputes, but if they provoke him, then they'd better be ready. The enemies charge together, saying he's only at the early chi refinement stage and nothing to fear. But their expressions twist to shock when Lin wipes out 4 of them with a single strike. He mocks, calling them French fries, and asks if they want to continue. The leader, enraged, orders his men to retreat, vowing they'll deal with him in the future. After the clash, the Moonshadow leader thanks him, but Ji replies there's no need. It was nothing. He says he handled the Spirit Falcon, and all the loot is on the ground, but as agreed, the yin replenishing herb will be his, along with 1 additional item with no problem. The two look at the drops and notice 6 pieces fell at once, a rare haul never before seen from a monster. The leader insists that since he defeated the falcon alone, the right to the loot is entirely his. Chen refuses, reminding them they had a deal and that they fought the falcon first. He says he already gained plenty by taking the finishing blow and will only pick 1 item as compensation. The two whisper, and soon a notification pops up asking if they want to finalize the transfer. Juan confirms, and the system announces the protagonist has received a deposit of 5 million. He is stunned, thinking the transfer happened in the blink of an eye, and concludes that woman is truly very rich. The leader then asks for a moment, introduces herself as Jiang Luoyu, president of the Moonshadow Guild. They shake hands, and Lin introduces himself as well, while reflecting on her name. He realizes it's familiar. In his previous life, she ranked as the 2nd most powerful mage, right behind him, but most importantly, she is the daughter of the richest man in Shanghai City. He thinks of taking advantage of that connection. Juan cuts the mood short, saying that's enough. Ji replies that he was distracted and didn't mean any harm. Ling, watching, thinks that before he didn't seem to care about her and assumed it was focus on the game, but in reality, maybe it was because he didn't find her attractive enough. Chen decides to wrap it up, saying it's fine and bidding farewell, promising they will meet again. Jiang comments that he seems like a good person, but Juan retorts, saying it's obvious he took advantage of her and has ulterior motives. She asks why her friend is being shy and if she's interested in him. Luo snaps back not to talk nonsense and orders them to return. She also adds to distribute a 50,000 bonus to each member who fought in the war that day as celebration. Meanwhile, Liu Xiazi, the most popular streamer on the national server, secretly watches everything. People comment that she live-streamed the guild battle along with the confrontation, showing also the performance of pro players. They ask to follow her. Liu declares in front of the audience that Master Lin easily defeated a boss in the late Qi refinement stage, that his strength is admirable, and moreover, he is very handsome. She publicly announces she considers him the #1 master of 8-fight wastelands, saying he is her idol, her crush. A young man watches the stream on his laptop, grinding his teeth, furious that his guildmates were eliminated. The boss was stolen, and now fame was gained from it. He smashes the object in front of him in anger, swearing that if he meets Lin again, he will kill him. Later, elsewhere, the protagonist completes the mission and goes to report the result. The elder greets him, saying he finally returned and to place the herb on the table. He thanks him for helping find the yin replenishing herb and says he cannot fail to reward him. Lin thanks him, and soon the system notifies he received 3 spirit-grade attribute pills, capable of permanently raising a combat attribute by 1 to 5 points randomly, and also the harmonious wind bracelet of spiritual grade. Ji asks the elder if he has already discovered the formula for the eternal youth pill, recalling that in his previous life he saw the announcement that the elder finally succeeded in refining it. He considers that if he reveals the formula, he may gain his goodwill. The old man admits he has tried many times without success. Without a recipe, they can only grope in the dark, and asks if Lin knows anything. Chen replies that once he read in an old book an indication, 3 grams of stone powder, 2 wild phoenix feathers, 6 grains of peony pollen, and 3 yin replenishing herbs. Tian Qing's eyes widen, and he says it's a miraculous encounter, asking him to watch the process and correct him if he notices any mistake. Soon the smoke clears, and the old man, excited, exclaims that he finally succeeded. Recognizing the favor, he gives a pill to Lin. The system notifies increased favorability and grants the Earth-grade Eternal Youth Pill, permanent innate charm +5, raises favorability with opposite-sex NPCs by 5%, and can also be given as a gift. The protagonist thinks Elder Tian Qing was incredibly generous. This pill is extremely rare. Even knowing the formula, only a 9th-grade master could refine it. He realizes he has gained great fortune this time, thanks the elder, and thinks of hurrying to deliver it to his master, since the more favor he has, the greater the benefits. But the old man asks him to wait. Lin asks if there is anything else he can do. Tian Qing then asks if he has interest in alchemy, revealing his desire to accept him as a disciple and pass on the art. The system notifies the offer, asking if he wishes to accept. Ji is surprised, unable to believe it, when a firm voice cuts through the air. It is Feiyan, his master, arriving and asking if he truly dares to steal her only disciple. Chen is stunned, not understanding why she appears at that moment, and fears she may have taken it the wrong way. The elder explains he doesn't intend to steal her disciple, only noticed his unusual talent for alchemy and wanted to instruct him. Lang understands and admits she misjudged. The protagonist notices she isn't angry, maintaining her cold and distant air, like a fairy untouched by emotion. She declares that despite the aptitude, she feels her disciple is more promising in cultivation. What the sword sect lacks are not alchemists, but powerful immortals, and she asks if he agrees. She concludes that if his level rises further, she will allow him to become the elder's disciple in the future. Lin questions why she looks at him like that and whether she is angry, though he denies it to himself. The old man accepts, saying he will return to his alchemy, leaving master and disciple at ease. Lang calls her disciple to follow her to the palace, saying she has something to tell him. Ji accepts, but in his thoughts fears her unpleasant tone as if she were about to demand accounts. At night in the palace, Chen comments that it seems his master is dissatisfied with him. She replies by asking why not dissolve the master-disciple relationship so he can find another teacher. The protagonist panics, realizing she misunderstood, and begs her not to sever the bond, promising to admit his mistakes. He declares he would never dare remain in the sect without respecting her teachings. Lang then asks what his mistake was. Lin admits he failed to focus on cultivation, as she always advised, and wasted time helping Elder Tian with alchemy, frustrating her expectations. In his thoughts, he notices her expression softening, her anger halved, and decides to push further. He declares she is the best master in the world, unmatched in cultivation and beauty, like a true deity. He rhetorically asks why he would follow another master if he already has someone like her, assuring it was all a misunderstanding. The system notifies favorability increased by +5. Ji brightens, understanding that sincere words move his master, and that he no longer needs to fear expulsion. Lang sighs and concludes that since he acknowledged his fault, she will not hold him accountable this time. Chen thanks his master and promises that because of her generosity, he will never again commit such a low mistake. He adds that he brought a small gift as an apology. Fayan looks and asks if it really is an eternal youth pill, surprised to see something so rare, questioning where he got it. The protagonist replies that he helped Elder Tianqing refine 2 pills and received 1 as a reward. The master sighs and says she understands, but emphasizes that such a precious pill should not be given to her, that he should keep it for himself. Lin thinks she is too proud and must make her accept no matter what. He affirms that he specifically asked the elder for this pill with the intention of giving it to her. He further explains that his desire to learn alchemy with Tianqing was precisely to obtain the eternal youth pill. He promises that in the future, he will make one for her every day until it becomes as common as a meal. Lang lets slip a faint smile, and Ji thinks he cannot resist that expression. He insists, saying that even if her celestial beauty doesn't need such a pill, this is his sincere intention, and asks her to accept it to ease his heart. Feiyan then agrees to receive it, and the system notifies her favorability increased further. The master adds she cannot accept such a valuable gift without repaying, and comments she recalled a perfect qi refinement technique for him, promising to fetch it. The protagonist thinks, as he suspected, the higher the favorability, the greater the benefits. Giving that pill was truly the right choice. The master asks him to follow her, and he answers affirmatively. He notices with surprise that she is wearing the simple hairpin he gave her earlier and feels satisfied. Later elsewhere, Lin sits on the ground, absorbing energy. He raises his sword and moves it with his powerful mana, reflecting that the new technique is incredibly strong. Its area damage is double that of the Cold Moon Slash, plus it interrupts enemy skills with a defensive effect. He evaluates that if it were auctioned, it could be traded for a house in a second-tier city. Then he opens the door upon hearing someone call. It is Nan, his guide, appearing late at night. Lin asks the reason for her visit. She explains she needs a favor. As a sword sect disciple, she must complete at least 3 tasks per main realm, but since reaching the crystallization realm, she has completed none. She feels she is about to advance, but if she doesn't finish a mission, she will be penalized. Ji asks why she didn't do it earlier, and Gong replies it was because of the novels, so captivating she completely forgot her duties. She says only the demon extermination task remains, which requires 2 participants, and asks if he would be willing to help her. Chen accepts, thinking she always took good care of him, gave him a spiritual jade pendant when they met, and that it would be disloyal to refuse. Nan smiles brightly and says he is the best. Ji assures her he will protect her and not let her be hurt. The system notifies her favorability increased. Soon, the two arrive at Wangyu village running side by side. Nan explains that the village was invaded by evil spirits, and all the villagers were turned into food for them, the work of a demonic cultivator. The sect orders them to destroy the spirits and investigate the cause, then report back to the elders. Lin recognizes the place and thinks that in the future it will become the entrance to the secret realm of plasma infants, a common destination for crystallization cultivators. He recalls having explored it countless times in his previous life. They walk while cultivating until they arrive before a tree. Strange noises echo from the nearby old well, and soon a monster leaps toward them. Gong draws her sword and tells him not to worry, assuring she will protect him. Several spirits emerge in succession. Ji observes and concludes that although they are only in the early qi refinement stage and not dangerous alone, gathered in hundreds, they make the fight much harder. Nan assesses the situation and says all the villagers were turned into spirits by the demonic cultivator of that house. She condemns such atrocity, swearing that today she will wipe out the demons and bring justice. Chen declares his support. Nan charges, unleashing attacks, shouting that the demonic scum killed innocents, and today will die in honor of the villagers who met a tragic end. Ji watches her and thinks she is much more reliable than she seemed, her combat power far exceeding his expectations. He yells for her to be careful, keeping pace with the battle. A giant hand rises from the shadows and tries to strike Nan, but she reacts quickly, counterattacks first, and manages to defend herself. Lin asks if she is alright, and the guide replies yes. Soon, a laugh echoes, accompanied by strange sounds. A man rises from the smoke, revealing himself in the center of the field, and comments that he was cultivating there until he attracted disciples of the Tianyin sword sect. He laughs, saying they had a path to heaven, but chose not to take it, so don't blame him for sending them to hell. Ji watches closely and realizes that man is a cultivator in the early golden core stage. Nan is shocked, thinking it impossible, questioning if the sect's information was wrong, but concludes no, and that by his aura he really just crossed into that stage. The warrior confirms, saying that though his cultivation is low, her vision is sharp, and indeed he just reached golden core. He adds that if he turns them into spirits, his power will grow even more. Gong tells Lin to retreat 50 steps so he won't get hurt. The warrior is irritated by her boldness and summons his phantasmal puppets, vowing to turn them into his marionettes. He attacks, releasing energy, and Nan responds by revealing her strength, unleashing a massive amount of power, striking the enemy with lightning. Chen thinks that before a battle of this level, a cultivator in mid-qi refinement like him must act cautiously. If careless, he could end up back at the novice village. The demonic cultivator realizes the girl is more troublesome than she looked and decides to summon the demon infant. Smoke spreads and a shadowy creature appears. Ji sees the spirit's tongue extending toward Nan and in a quick move slices it off before it hits her, shouting for her to focus on the cultivator while he handles the spirit. The entity growls, whispering vile and cursed words. Chen slashes repeatedly, and the system notifies second stage, demon infant flyer, skill, bloodbat, sound. During duration, disturbs the mind and reduces agility by 30%. The protagonist breathes deeply, forcing himself to stay calm and not succumb. He activates the Phoenix Feather technique, unleashing strikes. The demonic bat charges him, but Lin cuts in a flurry, wiping out several at once. He thinks this is the true power of a spiritual-grade martial skill, far superior to Cold Moon Ice. Meanwhile, Nan focuses her attacks on the demonic cultivator, managing to bring him down. Wounded, the warrior protests, saying he won't accept that outcome. Chen observes and concludes that this senior sister, seemingly delicate and sweet, is far more formidable than he thought. He had underestimated her. The cultivator, on the verge of death, swears he won't let them rest and hurls enchanted wood pieces. Nan raises her sword and slices them in half, but poisonous smoke spreads. Ji recognizes it and warns to cover mouth and nose, saying it's demonic insects. However, Gong inhales the smoke and begins to lose breath. Lin rushes, holds her in his arms, and asks if she's all right. The guide, embarrassed, asks him not to look at her. Ji closes his eyes, assuring he won't see anything, while thinking that demonic insects awaken human desires and that it's probably Nan's first time facing such a vile trick, leaving her defenseless. Nan partially regains herself, but her favorability begins to spike artificially. Chen recognizes that this sudden increase isn't real, but the effect of the poison. Nan, uncomfortable, asks for help and, under the influence, tries to kiss him. The protagonist feels embarrassed and reflects that if he gives in at that moment, everything he fought for could be lost. Holding her, he concludes that when she wakes up, she will remember what happened. At best, her favorability will drop to 0. At worst, she could turn against him in fury. After gaining such a powerful ally, he cannot risk it all for a moment of passion. Ji remembers that the ancient well contains refreshing pills at its bottom, but they are protected by a formation that only cultivators at the crystallization stage could withstand. He, still at Chi refinement, cannot resist it, but has no choice. He runs quickly, telling Nan to wait there, that he will find an antidote. Carrying a torch, he pushes through the darkness and notices the place filled with bones, the remains of villagers transformed, soaked in dense yin energy. Lin continues deeper into the well, but is struck by surprise and loses a large amount of health. He thinks he must hurry and find the pill quickly, or the continuous damage will finish him. His eyes catch a glow ahead and Ji concludes that he finally found it. The pill should be hidden in that healing potion. He throws himself forward but soon senses another attack incoming. Instinctively, he activates the spiritual shield blocking the strike. However, he realizes the situation is worsening. Yin thunderbolts start gathering again, not just one, but many. He hastily grabs a vial and decides he must return to the surface immediately. Lightning crashes behind him, and when he looks back, he realizes he cannot dodge. He is struck, loses a massive amount of health, and is thrown out, crashing hard onto the ground. The system notifies that yin energy has invaded his body, dealing critical damage and triggering a state of near unconsciousness. Even weakened, Chen rushes to his partner and forces her to swallow the antidote. The protagonist coughs blood himself, and the system warns he is in a near-death state. The instructor awakens confused, asking why her body feels so heavy and what happened to him. She notices Lin lying on top of her. Her eyes tear up with doubt, wondering if something else happened. Impulsively, she pushes him away furiously, calls him a beast, and declares that she hates him. Lin's cheek is marked by her slap, and the system reports her favorability has dropped to 0. But then, Nan notices a healing item on the ground, remembering she was about to succumb and that Lin had promised to find the antidote. Understanding hits her. He risked his life entering the Yin demon formation to save her. She runs to him and sees his back badly wounded, realizing he was struck by the formation. Tears fall as she admits she judged him wrongly. Determined, she declares that she must bring him back to the sect and ask her grandfather for help. She lifts his body and carries him with effort, begging him to hold on. Along the way, voices murmur upon seeing the scene, asking if that isn't the famous Sword Palace Fairy NPC carrying a player. She keeps going, holding Lin on her shoulders, saying they are almost there. Onlookers whisper among themselves, intrigued by the closeness between her and that disciple, suggesting it is improper. Chu, watching from a distance, grits his teeth in rage. Days later, Lin wakes up and wonders where he is and how long he has slept. An elder approaches, radiating powerful aura. Ji assumes this must be the one who saved him, since he was struck by the Yin demon formation and yet is alive. He thanks him, introduces himself, and asks for his savior's name, promising never to forget his kindness. The elder replies that he is Nangong Tianyuan, Nan's grandfather. Ji is surprised, thinking that anyone with the name Tian holds influence in the game and that he should get closer to him. He bows respectfully, but the old man retorts, "There is no need to remember favors, only one thing. Stay away from his granddaughter." He warns that if Lin dares touch her, he will not be spared, even as the sectmaster's disciple. Nan arrives and protests, reminding him he promised not to say such things. Tianyuan laughs, saying he was only joking, and admits Lin isn't bad. After all, he saved his granddaughter. Gong sits beside Lin and asks about his injuries. The protagonist, cautious, thanks her for the concern, saying he is already better. She confirms, explaining that he was unconscious because yin energy invaded his body, and if she hadn't brought him to her grandfather in time, it could have been fatal. Lin replies that he is grateful and doesn't know how to repay them. Nan dismisses it, asking if such formality is necessary between them. Ji shyly agrees while the grandfather watches in silence. Chen, embarrassed, tries to remain respectful. The instructor adds that it should actually be her thanking him, since he risked his life to find the antidote and was misunderstood for it. She apologizes, acknowledging that he is an honorable man. The protagonist thinks she should stop talking, fearing that if she continues, her grandfather might crush him with a slap. Still, he notices she looks at him suggestively, and then the system notifies. Her favorability has risen to 32 points. He is stunned, wondering how it jumped by 30 all at once.